Hello and welcome to another episode of Journey to the Rise. I'm your host, Lucretia. In today's episode, we talk with Terry Lancaster. He went from being a radio DJ to radio advertising, and that experience led him to discovering his niche and helping car dealerships grow their business. We discuss how his knowledge and expertise help salesmen increase their closing rate by building relationships. He has 3 #1 best-selling books, and during our conversation, he shares with us what inspired him to write them. Terry also goes into what it takes for someone to reach their goals. He discusses the importance of developing habits to help you create your success. He also has some incredible life-changing stories. So let's get started. Please welcome my guest, Terry Lancaster. Today, our guest is a cancer survivor, lived through a natural disaster, survived 3 teenage daughters, which I think some people would say is a natural disaster of its own. She's a best-selling author, and if you are a small business or an entrepreneur, I think you need to pay attention because he has helped thousands of small businesses and entrepreneurs create billions of revenue, and we get to talk to him today. Terry, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, Lucretia, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I want to just dive in from the beginning. I ask everybody the same question because it's my #1 curiosity. Where did you grow up?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee now. I'm living here now. We're interviewing around there, Middle Tennessee. I'm one of 7 people in Middle Tennessee from Middle Tennessee. I'm born and raised in East Nashville. Born in General Hospital on the banks of the Cumberland, went to Stratford High School over in East Nashville, live in Williamson County now.
Wow, that's awesome. What was life like for you as a kid in East Nashville? Because East Nashville is not what it is today.
East Nashville, so first of all, it was a long time ago when I was there. East Nashville was an interesting community. It was in the midst of change. At one point, East Nashville was pretty rough, and at one point, East Nashville was the richest area in Nashville. But then, things changed. When I was there, it was in transformation. It was in the 70s when I was growing up. We had busing going on, so there was a little bit of turmoil in and around that. But mostly it was pretty idyllic. It was a walkable neighborhood. I could walk to the grocery store or walk to the neighborhood market. Rode my bicycle. Neighborhood football games. We did a lot of walking around the neighborhood in what most would consider a fairly dangerous area. So it's a little bit out of the norm the way things happen now.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So you're in this neighborhood. What did you do after high school?
So I graduated from Stratford High School, and my cat just jumped up. So he's now in the party. Welcome, Sully. After high school, I went to I was a fairly bright kid. I could do the math, and in the 70s we were fighting the Russians. So if you could do the math, you had to be an engineer. So I went to Tennessee Tech over in Cookeville to become an engineer.
Oh, wow.
So I studied engineering at Tennessee Tech over in Cookeville, but I got there and decided that just because I could do math didn't make me an engineer. I kind of was more of I was a disc jockey, so I went to where the radio station was. So I started working in radio when I was at college. I went there. I transferred my degree to journalism because the radio station was in the journalism department, even though the journalism department was mainly about laying out small town newspaper ads. But I kind of built this curriculum around radio. So I worked in radio all through college. I managed the college radio station. I went to work at the Top 40 station my last couple of years in college. I was a primetime disc jockey. Primetime Kelly Michaels putting on the hits, baby. Bon Jovi. It was we did a lot of that. But I found out pretty quick that the disc jockeys aren't the people who make the money at the radio station. In fact, the radio business ain't about the music and it ain't about the disc jockey. It's about advertising dollars. So while I was in college, I started studying advertising. so that when I graduated, I could switch from being a disc jockey to selling advertising for radio stations. And I moved to Tupelo, Mississippi a week after I graduated from college. I got married. I went on my honeymoon. I came back and moved 200 miles away from everyone I ever known to sell radio advertising in Tupelo, Mississippi. And I did that in Tupelo and Memphis, back and forth between those couple places for about the next 5 years after graduation. 7 years, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Good old Tupelo, birthplace of Elvis.
Tupelo, yeah, home of Elvis.
Yeah. Love that. That's awesome. So eventually you got into like cars. Where was the transition for you? Like, what was life for you? So you're doing this thing, you're going between Tupelo and Memphis. Like, what transition next for you?
So this was in the 80s, right? And so I'm in my 20s in the 80s, and just like in the radio station, I found out that the radio business was about was about advertising. I found out the radio advertising business was about car advertising. That was by far the heaviest vertical. Those were our biggest advertisers. They had the biggest budgets. They spent the most money. So I took it on myself to get really good at automotive advertising. So some of my biggest customers, both in Tupelo and in Memphis, were car dealerships. Some of my best customers, right from the get-go, were car dealerships, and my biggest customers worked with these giant dealers over on Covington Pike in Memphis. They were selling hundreds of cars, spending enormous amounts of money at the time. So I got interested in the car business because it was very lucrative, and left the radio business in the 90s to start an advertising agency that didn't do anything but work with car dealerships.
Wow. And you ended up writing a book about this. What was the inspiration to write your book?
Well, the book I ended up writing a book. The first book I wrote was called Better: Self-Help for the Rest of Us. Had nothing to do with the car business. I've come back around now. I've written three books. I've got three number one best-selling books now. I've been very lucky in that respect. But I ended up writing one about the car business because its most recent book I released it over the last couple of years, a couple of years ago, and it's called How to Sell More Cars. And I wrote it because the car business has changed so dramatically since when I first got into it in the 80s, when it was all about spending huge money on radio and TV stations, and car dealers still do spend huge money on radio and TV stations, and I still produce radio and TV spots for car dealerships. I've probably written more radio spots than any human being alive, just because I've been doing it for so long. But the business has changed because one of the major components that we did in the 80s and 90s was newspaper advertising. The newspaper advertising was designed to capture low funnel buyers who are in the market right now, and the newspaper business is out of business now. And all of that low funnel stuff, the car shoppers, they don't go pick up the Sunday paper to buy a car anymore. They go to the internet. They go to their phone. They go to Google. They go to Facebook. They go to these places. And so that's changed the way cars are sold. That's the way shoppers act. And because of social media, it's changed the way salespeople interact with their customers. And so what I did, I wrote the book How to Sell More Cars to help salespeople who never traditionally had to really develop these social relationships. Well, for the most part, they don't, because they're so busy working incoming buyers. But the real lucrative part of the car business is when you've got those long-term customers who come back over and over and over again. You run the big radio ads to get them in the first time and to maintain a presence in the market. But you want to eventually have these people who are coming in to see you because they know, like, and trust you, and you've built a personal relationship with them. So that's what the book How to Sell More Cars is about. It's about helping salespeople market themselves in this new era, the way where we're buying and the way we sell almost everything.
That's amazing. And you're right, it has transitioned a lot, and people do like to have that familiar face. It seems to build that trust so that you have an idea of who you're dealing with, because I think there's this idea of, when it comes to this car salesman, the sleazy car salesman who's going to take advantage of you, and it's scary to buy. That's a big purchase. It always has been, but especially now. So I'm sure like having a book and a guide like what you offer can give those people who truly want to help someone get into a safe vehicle, have that nice vehicle, maybe even the dream vehicle, create that connection.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I say that's the best thing a salesperson can do for their customer is to have a relationship with them before they come in the dealership, so that there's never an antagonistic moment. There's always that the greatest thing they can do to improve the experience is to decrease the animosity right off the bat, and so that it's never any kind of battle. It's just of one friend helping another to accomplish what they want. And so, starting the process much earlier is the big key to getting that done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned the other book that you have, Better, Self-Help for the Rest of Us. What was it that made you want to write this book, and how long did it take you to write it?
So it took me a lifetime to write it because that's what it takes, right? What happened was I got to where are we at now? I had to be about 47 years old. So I wrote Better Self Help for the Rest of Us almost 10 years ago. That's when I started writing it. It's when I started writing it, and I started writing it because I was actually I was tending bar. I was at a fundraiser. I was at a fundraiser for my kids were in high school band at the time, and at one of the fundraisers they did to fund the band and the trips because my kids were going to Europe that summer. One of the things they did was they tended bar and sold food at Bridgestone Arena for concerts. It's they public some of the charities do that thing. So the band organization was one of the charities that staffed the bar, and I was serving bar at a Garth Brooks concert at Bridgestone. And I was serving with this lady who was another band mom, a band parent, and she had kids, but she was from Britain. She had not grown up in East Nashville. She'd come from very far away, and she had not lived here honestly that long. And at the time, she had zero idea who Garth Brooks was. What is Garth Brooks? And I was trying to tell her, I said, well, Garth Brooks has sold more record than the Beatles and Elvis probably combined. He in the 90s, he was the radio. He was everything. So he was a big deal. He sold out like 5 nights in a row at Bridgestone, and she didn't know why. And she said, well, how old is he? And here's what I said. I said, well, he's about our age. He's like 50. And I'd never said that before. I was about to be 50 years old, and I kind of realized, oh, I'm a grown ass man. This is who I am.
Right.
Dude, and it was a kick in the gut. It's like, and I realized at that point I was kind of a mess. I've always been overweight, but I was way overweight, and I've always drank, but I drank way too much at that time, and my business was struggling because of the changes in the market. Car dealers didn't lay out newspaper ads anymore, and during most of the 90s, that'd been 90% of my advertising revenue was newspaper ads because that's where the big money was, and that was gone. So I was struggling a little bit, and I said I got to get my act together, and I did. I did really kind of. It started off slow. I started like everyone else. I started. I decided I'm going to run a marathon next week. That's what you do, right? I'm gonna go run a marathon. But nobody runs a marathon. Nobody runs a half marathon. But I played ice hockey, and a bunch of my buddies actually had run half marathons. So, but what I watched them all do is they would, especially the ones who got old and fatter, would decide to get back in shape. I'm going to get in shape, and I'm going to go run a marathon. And then they would run a marathon, and they'd pull their hammy out, and then they're back on the couch drinking beer for 6 months. So everyone decides that they're going to fix themselves, and they want to do it all right now because as human species we have zero patience. So we want it all right now, and we want it all to be perfect. And so that's what got me started on the path. And I did that for a couple of years, and I started writing about it. I started kind of keeping a blog, and I kind of stumbled into the idea of instead of being perfect, why don't we just be better? Why don't starting with what we want to be, instead of starting with this perfect idealized version of ourselves, why don't we start with exactly who we are, exactly the life we're living right now, and try to make it just a little bit better, one step at a time. Now, honestly, I did. I stumbled into that idea, and I thought that's a big deal. I need to make this book about that. And that's what I set out about doing. In the course of writing the book, I found out that everything I was talking about is ancient 2,000-year-old wisdom and ain't nothing new. And I didn't invent nothing. These ideas were all there. But I put them into this book form and about making your life better instead of being the version that instead of trying to lose 100 pounds and make $1 million. Why don't you go out, take a walk, and try to call on a couple of customers and do the work that's actually gonna get you there. So that's the better part. The self-help for the rest of us is because when I said I'm gonna write a self-help book, you start looking around at them, and it's the funny thing about self-help authors is they all look like they have perfect lives. You go into the bookstore and there's Tony Robbins and he's got more teeth than any human being should be allowed to have. He's got this perfect smile and he's 6'4" and he's a solid specimen of a human being. But that's not how most of us are. Most of us don't look like that. Most of us kind of struggling through. And I wanted the book to be for everybody who's kind of struggling through, saying you don't have to be that, just be you better.
I love that. And you're right. We think we can go out and fix things and we go do something and then we put too much into it and then we backtrack ourselves. And then that turns into depression, anxiety, and it seems to compile. I'm going to be getting your book after this conversation because I think not only I could use it, but many of my friends will be able to use that advice.
Yeah, it's a never-ending loop.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more from our guest, Terry, as he talks about what to do when your business plateaus and needs a boost out of a slump. Are you utilizing your email list? Do you know that with the right message, you can convert sales and grow your business with an effective email messaging system? If you would like to know how to grow your business, build a connection with your clients, please go to girlbosscopywriter.com to set up a free 30-minute consultation and find out how Girl Boss Copywriter can enhance your business. The goal for any business is to grow and reach a new level. Get there faster by being an authority in your industry with a video docu-series. Using video, you can showcase you, your business, your staff, products, services, and your why. Building relationships is key, and a high-quality video can give existing and potential clients a way to get to know you. It also allows you to build a connection that results in increased sales. If you would like to know more about how you can enhance your business with video, contact girlbossproductions.com today. Welcome back to Journey to the Rise. We continue our conversation with Terry and why he does not consider himself a motivational speaker. And you have another book called Unstuck. Can you share what that's about with us?
Yeah, so after I wrote Better, I started appearing on podcasts, and I was on the first year after I released Better, I was on about 100 podcasts. And I got invited to do some speaking and a lot of speaking in and around Nashville to some of the business groups and sales organizations and like the Nashville Association of Sales Professionals, and a gentleman by the name of Tom Coates. Tom Coates, who had a networking group that he ran. He's now the professor of sales at Middle Tennessee State University. He's gone on since that time to get his doctorate, and he now teaches young sales professionals how to be entrepreneurs and salespeople coming out of college. But he and I met through the networking and speaking I was doing at that time, and we ended up, Tom mostly, put on this sales conference, this sales and business conference called Unstuck. And it was down at Bridgestone Arena, just where I'd been serving beer just a couple years before, and we put on this little sales conference, and we had about 10 speakers who were speaking at this conference, and we're speaking about becoming unstuck, about taking your business to the next step of its development. You've made it. You're at a business, but now you find yourself at a plateau, or maybe even that point where I was, where my business has gone away, and your business is changing, and you have to come out the other side of that valley. You have to become unstuck. And so we had 10 speakers speaking about different aspects of that. The thing I was speaking about was on personal branding, about developing this idea of you and then using digital media to infer that idea into the brains of your customers so that they already know you before they know you. And we put on this conference, and I told all of the speakers, if you will, give me a written version of your speech. We're going to take your speech, we're going to put it in a written version, and we'll create a book out of that, so that we can have those at the conference and for later for you to get for you to use in your promotional development to spread these ideas, and we'll build a book all out of that. So we put together this book Unstuck as in conjunction with the Unstuck conference down at Bridgestone. I think that was 2017, 18, something like that.
Wow, that's awesome. And you're right. So many times we do get stuck. We find a plateau. We get these blocks, and we don't know how to navigate our way through that. So this is really great information that if you're a business owner out there, or maybe just stuck in life, this may be a book for you. And is that how you became a motivational speaker? Is that what led you into that area of your career?
Well, first of all, I hate the word motivational speaker. And no judgment on you, Lucretia. But that's because that's what people call it, right? And if you go online, you're going to find me listed under motivational speakers, because that's the thing. But the thing is, I'm the farthest thing from a motivational speaker, because one of the things that I teach is the deficiency in motivation. Motivation will always fail you at the exact moment you need it most. The moment you run out of motivation. When you don't have any, what do you do then? And motivation is easy. It's easy to get all rah-rah and pumped up and I'm going to go run half marathon and I'm going to turn my business around, and that's what we do. That motivation, that part that when you're really psyched and you feel like you can get anything done and you're all gung-ho, that's the easy part. The hard part is actually doing it. The hard part is doing it. The gyms are full on January 2nd. February 2nd, not so much, right? So the hard part is February 2nd. The hard part is put one foot in front of the other, day after day after day after day. And that's not motivation that gets you there. That's habit that gets you there. It's not even determination, because determination, just like motivation, it's a muscle. You can be as determined as you want and as gritty as you want, but eventually that's going to fade away. Something shiny is going to pop up and take your attention away from that, or some other problem is going to be more pressing than whatever you're trying to accomplish. And the thing that gets you going day to day is habit, about turning those tiny steps that you take, those tiny actions that you take today, building those into habits that you take tomorrow, and you take the day after that, and you take the day after that, until they become, well, a habit, until you can't not do them. So that's what I speak about. I started speaking after the book came out. Like I said, I got invited to these speaking conferences around Nashville, the local networking conferences, and then I spoke at a couple of national conventions. Spoke at the National Automobile Dealers Association. Spoke at the National Association of Broadcasters to radio and television, to radio broadcasters. And I've spoken around the country, mostly to car dealerships. I go in and do training sessions and speaking and development with car dealerships for the kind of stuff in the book, How to Sell More Cars.
Nice. And you're right. I do appreciate that, because you're right. The motivation is the easy part. It's the day-to-day work. And what people need to realize is when you start to establish that routine, those habits, that's where the motivation starts to come from, because you get that drive, because it's habitual. So I really appreciate you touching on that, because you're right. It's so much more than just being motivated. That's awesome. So I noticed in one of the video clips I came across on you told a story, and hopefully you'll share it with us, about, did you have a mugshot taken while wearing party clothes?
No. The truth is, I've never had a mugshot taken. Now, I don't know what I said in that clip, because I am prone to exaggeration. No, so I think Mark Twain or somebody else famous once said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So I've never had my mugshot taken with my party clothes, but I did get my fingerprints taken with my party clothes on in Cookeville, Tennessee. Cookeville, Tennessee. I was in college, And I'd been out, I was 18, 19 years old in college, and I'd been out drinking, dancing, and chasing women the night before. And I had on my drinking, dancing, chasing women clothes, which at the time, because you probably weren't even born. Most of the people watching this probably weren't even born. But if you can imagine, I had on baggy pinstripe jeans. I had on Capezio jazz dance shoes. Now you'll have to Google that to see what it is, but it was Capezio. They're those pointy-o dance shoes with the soft soles, so you can slide and wiggle your butt in them. And then I had on a pink golf shirt with the collar popped up. And because it was the '80s, I had a full-blown mullet. Actually, I had better than a mullet. I had a rat's tail. So it looked it was,
Whoa, a rat's
it
tail.
looked pretty. It looked pretty much exactly like it looks here from the top. Maybe a little more. I might have had a little more wavy stuff going on, but in the back it was down over the collar, and then 3 or 4 inches of rat's tail in belong that. I did not have a bead in my rat's tail though, so that's where I drew the line.
That's absolutely fantastic. Living life. That's what we gotta do, right? Living life. That's amazing.
By the way, the police showed up the next morning and came by and picked me up because in our enthusiasm we had neglected to pay a bill at the Waffle House when we stopped drinking and dancing and chasing women at 3 in the morning. So that's why the police showed up and I had to get the fingerprinted and go pay my bill at the Waffle House.
The good old Waffle House, causing trouble for everybody at 3 a.m. Now you survived a tornado. Can you share that experience with us? Because that's terrifying.
It is beyond terrifying. It really is. And I think you told me you lived in Memphis. So I was living in Memphis at the time, or no, I take it back. I was living in Tupelo, but I was visiting Memphis, and some friends and I and my wife and some friends had gone to the Greyhound dog track in West Memphis, Arkansas, across the river, across the bluffs from Memphis, Tennessee. They used to have this Greyhound dog track. Southland Greyhound Park was the name of it, where they raced they raced the Greyhound dogs, and gambling was legal on it. So we were there gambling and betting on the puppies, not the ponies, on the puppies. And so you cross the Mississippi River out of Memphis, and Memphis sits on the bluff a little bit, and it's got a few hills over there. But you get to Arkansas, it's just flat, ain't nothing for a long, long, long time. And we're sitting there in the middle of these soybean fields, in the middle of miles and miles and miles of soybean fields, and we're gambling on the puppies, and we start to hear this kind of train rumble. You hear people talk about it sounding like a train rumble, and it does. It's like it becomes more intense, becomes more intense, becomes more intense. And I don't. If most people probably haven't been to a racing track, but I don't. I haven't been to a lot, so I don't know if they're all built like this. But there were about 30 rows of seats, and they were covered, and they had a giant plexiglass in front of them. So there was. I assume it was plexiglass, maybe it's some kind of glass. I don't know what it was, but it was probably 20, 30 feet tall, and that was spread all the way across down the whole frontway stretch of the dog track. I have no idea how long that was, and we're standing at the top of the rails because we just placed a bet, and so there's 20, 30 rows of people in front of us watching the dogs race, and you start hearing that train coming, and then the plexiglass, it starts wobbling. You can see it coming in and shaking, and it starts going. And even before the train gets there, everybody from the bottom of that track starts running up to the top of the track. It was just this wall of people. And then the tornado goes over us. It intensifies, and then you hear it all around us, and then it's gone. And the whole thing probably lasts, I don't know, 15, 30 seconds, right? Or
Wow.
not a huge amount of time. But it comes and it's gone. When we got out of the parking lot, there'd been cars. I don't know that it actually struck the building we were in. I think it skipped over the building, but it hit the parking lot. There were cars tumbled over. There were cars in the road that had been in the parking lot. Now they're out in the road. There were barns in the fields next to the track. These barns with sheet metal roofs that had been picked up, and the sheet metal was wrapped up like a ball of yarn, and there's this big ball of sheet metal in the middle of the field where a barn, near where a barn used to be. So
Wow.
it was pretty intense.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank goodness you're okay, and hopefully everybody else is okay. That's terrifying. And you've also been on a boat that sank. What are the details of that situation?
People are fascinated with all the ways I nearly died. I don't know. Yeah. When I was a kid, growing up in East Nashville, my dad was from a place called Stewart County, which is up near the Kentucky border. Stewart County, Tennessee. He specifically grew up in a place near Dover. His grandparents' farm, where they had been farmers, and his family's lived there for generations since the 1700s. His grandparents' farm had been subsumed by the government to form this federal wildlife area, the land between the lakes. And actually, when they flooded the Cumberland River and the Tennessee River, they flooded them both at the same time to make these huge lakes, and the Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lake. A lot of the areas were lost. His grandparents' farm is now at the bottom of the lake. So when I was a kid, we used to spend a lot of time up there at this place, Land Between the Lakes, and we'd go camping every year for a whole week. We'd leave on a Friday night and we'd stay till the next Sunday. So 9 days camping. That was our family vacation every year. We'd go camping with my aunts and uncle, a couple of aunts, a couple of uncles, grandparents, everybody. We all had campers and we all had boats, and we'd go down there camping and fishing for a week. And so we had this boat, and we stayed at this campground, and the boat had been in the water for a full week. And we didn't really know that the boat was damaged. It had like a tiny crack in the hull. So as it had been sitting in the water for a week, it had been taking on water on the inside shell of the boat.
Oh,
So
wow.
we take off, take off, and we got like three boats running in a caravan. My grandparents and my uncle, and then our boat with me, my mom, and my brother on it, and we're driving along. And as you know, we leave the little area that we're in. We get the boat up on plane, and everything's fine, just chugging along. We're chugging down the river, chugging, and we're taking the heavy family, the moms, the kids, everybody, and we're going to go to some picnic area, I think. So we're just loaded down. All the kids are on there. It's a big old thing, but it's just me and my brother. I'm probably 9, 10 at this point, and so we're chugging along down the river. Everything's fine. We turn to when we get to the picnic bay. We slow down, and the boat comes down. When the boat comes down, out of the water that had been in the back of the boat rushed to the forward, and the boat just dives, just boom. So we're going along,
Wow.
and as we slow down, we reach a point, and the water rushes to the front. And literally 1 second, we're riding along in the boat. The boat just drives completely out from underneath us. It just drives down, and we're all had life jackets on, so we're all floating, and there's no there. The boat just disappeared out from underneath us, and then it goes about 3, 4, 5 yards down the river, and pops up, turns over upside down. So all our picnic supplies, all my dad's fishing supplies, our trolling motor, everything drops to the bottom of the river. The thing I remember the most is I was probably 8 or 9, which means my little brother was 4 or 5, I guess. Yeah, something like that at that time. He came up, and he was frightened to death because as we were going under, everybody grabbed at him. He grabbed the paddler. So I grabbed at him, Mama grabbed at him, Daddy grabbed at him. So all he knows is everybody's grabbing at him, and we're going underwater. But everybody came out safe. We did lose the trolling motor though.
Oh my gosh, you're like a cat with 9 lives.
I know.
You also talk about you're flying through the Bermuda Triangle, and the plane that you're on dropped a mile in the
Yeah,
sky. Like,
yeah,
what
about three.
what was that like? Like, I try not to get too nervous just through basic turbulence. I cannot imagine just like down.
So yeah, I was. This was. I was when I was working in radio in Tupelo. We took a trip to the Bahamas in the '80s, and we took a trip. We took it was the employees, the sales team of the radio station, the managers, the sales team of the radio station, and some clients. And we took this group trip to the Bahamas, got rooms, went to the casino down there. There's a common theme of gambling going on, and we were in the Bahamas, and we were flying back. We were flying back from the Bahamas. So everybody it was a whirlwind trip. We'd only been down there a couple of days, 3 days, I guess. And we're flying back, and everybody's hungover, everybody's sunburned. It's the end of a long vacation, and we're coming back. We're flying back to Miami, and we reach cruising altitude, and the pilot comes on and says, "Hey, everybody!" The light comes on, and the pilot comes on and says, "I need everyone to grab your seats and buckle up. We're going to be encountering just a little bit of turbulence going on." So we go through and we get some regular turbulence, and the wings are shaking, the things are going up, and everybody's kind of doing the nervous looking around thing. There's lightning going on, gets real dark, and is doing that, and then all of a sudden we're going, and just like Wile E. Coyote when he runs off the cliff, the plane just drops. Just boom. And you could feel it in your stomach. Two things happened simultaneously as this happened. One, the little dangly decompression things. When there's decompression in the cabin, the air masks come out, right? So simultaneously, all these air masks drop out of the sky like the worst party favors ever, is jiggling and wiggling like it's confetti. It's New Year's Eve. So it pops down at the same time. Somewhere between a third and a half, all the passengers on the plane throw up because your stomach, which was right here, is now right here. It's just everybody lost their cookies. There was no time to grab any of the air sick bags or anything like that. And you don't even have time to bend over and kiss your butt goodbye. You think, and then the plane just goes again. It goes whoop, and then it starts going. And then a couple of minutes later, there's no turbulence. And the captain comes on and kind of calm like and says, sorry about the turbulence we encountered a little bit back there. We hit what's called an air pocket. There just wasn't any air pressure there to hold up the plane. And but we regained lift, and we'll be arriving in Miami in about 10 minutes. Please enjoy the rest of your flight. The scariest thing of all of that is there's a name for it. And why, I don't know why people don't tell you this, that there's air pockets where there's not enough air to hold up the planes.
Wow.
Why are we going up there when there's not enough air to hold up the planes? If you can just drive along and there's no road, I wouldn't be driving on that road. But sometimes apparently it happens.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be terrifying. And in all areas, the Bermuda Triangle, which already has like this known mystery, if you will, behind it. Wow.
Right.
Well, I'm glad the flight went well, and that it's amazing how calm those pilots are when things like that happen. It's like, oh, by the way, we almost died, but we good.
But we didn't, so there's that.
Right. Now, I believe I saw on your website that you have a program called 7 Mistakes Your Salespeople Are Making on Social Media. Is there one of those mistakes that you could possibly share with us?
I think the biggest mistake that salespeople and business people and entrepreneurs of all sorts they make with social media is the obvious one, and this they treat it more as media and less as social. Social media is just a component of relationship building. It's one of the ways that we build and develop relationships with our customers, with our employees, with our communities. And if you're using social media the same way that you use radio or television advertising to interrupt and intrude and to bring your message to people when they're not necessarily expecting your message, and to kind of take advantage of that relationship, if that's all you're using it for, if that's the only thing you're doing, then you're doing it wrong. And if you can just kind of turn that on its head and use social media more as a social tool, to build relationships, to maintain relationships, to strengthen relationships, to build and form actual connections and community, you're going to come closer to getting what you're wanting out of it than if you use it for a lead generation device.
Yeah, so important is building community, using it as social. I think that's where people miss like the mark by a lot. That's fantastic advice. If there's someone out there listening, maybe they're feeling stuck in the growth of their business, maybe they're even feeling stuck in life, like what advice would you have for them?
If I'm full of advice, but if I had to tell you to do one thing, if you're in a situation, and you want to change things, whether it's your life, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationship, more than likely it's because it's yourself. Of all of those things, of all those things, all those problems are usually more self-generated than they are otherwise. I think one of the first steps toward making any lasting change in your life in any of those areas is to start, obviously, right here, right now, to start where you are, because you'll never get where you're going unless you start where you are. So to take a look at where you are, take kind of an inventory of everything, of your life, and what are the things happening in your life right now that are going well. What are you grateful for? What do you wake up every day excited about? What brings you joy? What sparks joy in your life at this moment, at this time? And be truly thankful for that, and grateful that it's in your life, and feel it, and start endeavoring to make more of your life like that. And so people, when I say it's that, people confuse what I'm talking about with being happy. But when I was at the bars at 3 in the morning being happy, that ain't the same thing, because I was always trying to get somewhere. And true happiness, I tell the story in Better, the book about happiness, and there's, if you go Google hagfish, there's this animal called a hagfish, which is just a big clunk of gooiness from the deep sea, and if you pick it up, it squirts slime everywhere, and the harder you try to grab it, the more slime it emits, and you just can't hold on to a hagfish. And I use the analogy in the book that happiness, true happiness, joy, is like that hagfish, and the more you're trying to grab it, the more you're trying to hang on and get a grip on even what it looks like, then the more it's going to spit and squirm and slurm and evade you. So quit looking so damn hard, and just kind of be where you are, and make every day a little bit better.
That's fantastic advice. I love that. And you're right, people do. It's like grabbing onto a hot dog. You grab a hot dog on really, really tight, it's just going to go bing.
Yeah.
You gotta stop trying so hard. Well, I've heard someone make the comment, try easier. Instead of trying so hard, try easier. And I think that very much aligns with what you just said. And you also talk about your copywriting, something that I would like to touch base with you on. Clearly, you are very brilliant with marketing and your copywriting. How is your copywriting then just so instrumental in with what you do?
Well, we're all of everything we do, especially because is now done digitally. It's all about trying to move an idea. Sales. Here's the perfect example. Sales has been called the transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. If I'm trying to sell you on my new phone, I'm going to sell you this new phone. Then I have to transfer the enthusiasm that I have for this phone, the brilliance that I think that is. I have to take that idea and I have to put it in your head, right? I have to make my ideas your ideas. You have to become convinced in the way that I become convinced, and I have to do a magic trick that takes my brain and puts that into your brain. And long before we had any technology like this camera or this phone or this computer or any of these things, or brilliant design that we can build images and videos and all these ideas that we use to transfer ideas and convictions from one head to another. Hundreds of thousands of years before that, we had words. we had stories. We gathered around the campfire telling stories to each other, and that's how human culture came to be, because we transferred stories from one head to another head over generations, and the stories grew, and the stories grew bigger and bigger and bigger every time, as stories do, and we built this entire culture from the use of words. So of course words and stories are going to be at the basis of every kind of human communication. Story is our natural language. That's that's how we get stuff done.
Yeah, everybody loves story, and I think it helps as you're talking about that. It's story that helps you get that connection to the sale, to the marketing, to the item, the thing, the product, the service. And having that skill as a copywriter, I think people don't realize how incredibly important it is.
Yeah, it's the basis for everything. Like I said, it is the kernel, it is the nugget, it is from whence it all comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long have you always like kind of fallen into that copywriter role, or did you just one day after many years of what you were doing realize, oh my gosh, I'm a copywriter? Or did it always make sense to you that you were a copywriter?
No, I've been I've been a copywriter since I was a kid. Before I knew anything about what I was a copywriter. I was scribbling stuff in notebooks when I was a kid. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. I'm not as much of a reader now, but I was a huge reader when I was a kid. So I read everything I could get my hands on, and I just assimilated a lot of words. And so I've always been fairly eloquent at expressing my words. I knew it was something that I was decent at. So I kind of, grateful for what I had. I leaned into that. When I started in radio, the radio station was in the journalism department, so I transferred to journalism. And as going through this major, like I said, the journalism department at the time at Tennessee Tech wasn't designed to create broadcast journalists. It was designed to create print journalists. So we all worked at the newspaper. We covered a beat for the student newspaper. I worked at the Nashville Tennessean in Banner when I was interned there one summer when I was in school. So I was writing always, and from the time I was a kid, and I knew I was pretty good at it. And even when I was a disc jockey, so when I was disc jockeying on top of the mountain at the mighty Jet 107 in Monterey, Tennessee, I was the primetime nighttime disc jockey, but I ended up being the chief copywriter for the radio stations because, there were people there who produced radio spots, but I was a journalism major and I was some eager 20-year-old kid. I'd do whatever they told me to do. So yeah, I'll write the radio spots. So I wrote all of the radio spots for that radio station for all of the salespeople. Then when I went into sales, I made because I knew how important it was. I never understood how a salesperson could have another person write their script. How do you? I mean, you should know it better than anyone. You should be able to write it. But if when you have a hammer, everything looked like a nail. My hammer was the ability to put words together, better. So it just seemed silly that someone else would write the copy, and that's how I ended up writing more commercials than any other human being. Is because I just kept doing it because that's what I do.
That's awesome. I love that. If there's someone out there who's wanting to get into copywriting, like what kind of thoughts or words of wisdom or advice could you share with that aspiring person?
My advice would be don't do that. That's yeah, no, don't. I think my best advice for a copywriter is if you are good at the words, find a way to use the words to your benefit, for yourself, for your enterprise, for your business, for whatever it is you want to do. I mean, AI is a big thing right now. This Chat GPT thing is no joke. It can write an article just as great, just as good as a fair to middling college student, which is better than 90% of the Shrek that gets peddled off from foreign language speakers. English as a second language, people who don't speak it as a native. The robots are doing a fair to middling job at this. So writing words for other people, I don't see a huge future for that, except for a lot of folks. There's always going to be some, But I think for the most part, if you can take that ability to craft a tale, to weave a narrative, to compel people to your way of thinking, my advice is to find some way of thinking that you can use your craft to compel people to do and get paid for that instead of for the words.
Mm-hmm. So do you still play hockey?
I do. I played hockey yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'm playing hockey tonight. So
You
two
are?
nights in a row.
Nice. How old were you when you started playing?
I started playing hockey I started ice skating. I'm born and raised in Nashville, so it was kind of unusual um, for someone in Nashville to be affiliated with ice hockey because it wasn't a big deal in the '60s, literally when I started, for people to go skating and play ice hockey. But there has been youth hockey in Nashville since the '60s and professional hockey in Nashville since the '60s. And I started when I was about 5 because my grandfather and my father both worked for the city of Nashville. And one of the things for the city of Nashville, they owned the auditorium, municipal auditorium, where they played professional ice hockey and where they had public skating. My grandfather ended up running the skate room for public skating sessions. He would show up on every weekend morning and work the rental counter and hand out people skates when they got there, and then he kept all the skates sharpened. So every weekend from the time I was 5 years old, I was hanging out with Granddaddy up at the ice rink. And then I'd go to some of the professional hockey games with him because they were at the arena. We could get in. And it took me from then till I was about 11 to convince my mom to let me play hockey. But finally, when I was 11, I got her to let me play, and we got together some genuine hockey equipment, and I started playing ice hockey with the Nashville Youth Hockey League, and I've been playing pretty much ever since. I've skipped a few years here and there, but still at it.
That's awesome. I love that. And there's people out there who want to find more information about you. Maybe there's a small business or an entrepreneur who would like to get in touch with you. Where can they find you? What's your website? How can they track you down?
So if there were ever any reason that I owed the mafia large amounts of money, it would be an unfortunate situation because I cannot hide from anyone. I'm the most visible person on the planet. If you want to know who I am, where I am, anything, just Google Terry Lancaster. My picture's going to show up, my address is going to show up, my phone number's going to show up. It's everything right there. Google Terry Lancaster. Boom.
That's awesome. I know you're a super busy guy, and I appreciate your time and your willingness to share your stories and your journey. And it's just been so much fun and such an honor to have this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I like to run my mouth, so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and I hope you and everyone who listens finds it helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it with car sales guru, author, and speaker Terry Lancaster. Next week, we talk with Grayson Toll, a very talented artist.
I think a lot of it has to do with, and everyone wants to know if I've taken, not everyone wants to know all these, not like it's a big crowd of people are like, do you take classes in color theory? I've never done that, but I really don't know, but I think a lot of it has to do with, I still have a strong imagination and sort of like a childlike mind, I feel like, or I can easily tap into like 8-year-old Grayson. And I've always considered that a strength. So I feel like a lot of it has to do with just the way that I can look at things and I don't know, I have such a strong attachment to my 8-year-old self that was truly believed in Terabithia, and like still to this day, like I still believe in fairies and all this, or at least I really want to, and I don't want that spirit to die away. So I feel like a lot of it has to do with just nostalgia and childhood connection for me.
Hey, thanks for listening to Journey to the Rise. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you have the latest episode downloaded. If you want to follow us on Instagram, our account is at Journey to the Rise Podcast. This episode is researched, produced, and edited by Girl Boss Productions. And remember to be kind to yourself. When you are kind to you, it is easier to be kind to others. I'm Lucretia, and you've been listening to Journey to the Rise.